When protests took place nationwide in the wake of George Floyd's death, Marcus Baskerville felt that he had to raise awareness in his own way.
And we're at a prolific point in American history right now, and it's like, okay, what are you going to do? You know, are you just going to sit here and watch, or are you going to actually take action? So my choice was to take action.
And he's doing it with a stout called Black is Beautiful, a collaborative initiative where 100% of the proceeds will go to foundations that support police brutality reform or local organizations that support equality and inclusion. And it's an initiative that's gone global.
Sitting at where we're at now, we're over a little 1,200, all 50 states, and I think 26, 27 countries.
They've collected data from 300 of those 1,200 participating breweries, and so far, they've raised over $1.2 million. But Weathered Souls is also busy with many other collaborative projects.
So we just did the Run the Jewels collab. That was huge fun. We ended up coming out with an IPA with toasted coconut, marshmallow, and vanilla beans.
And then there's the Hardwood Classics basketball-inspired German Pilsner that's going to be in the AT&T Center for the remainder of the Spurs NBA season. You add that on top of Black is Beautiful being in retail stores, it'll take a while before Weathered Souls can collect all the data to see how much this initiative raised worldwide.
The initiative has garnered so much respect that we want to keep it. And so if I can work with the individual to make sure that that money is going somewhere that is actually going to be useful and helpful, then that's obviously the ultimate goal.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marcus Baskerville, head brewer owner of Weathered Souls Brewing Company. We own a brewery here in San Antonio, Texas. We specialize in a different array of different styles, ranging anywhere from sours, IPAs, stout. Kind of what we're more known for are barrel-aged items that we put out. But we always got some fun stuff going on over here in San Antonio.
All right, so this is like a fun moment for me because Marcus told me from the get-go, he's like, I'm going to do this interview, I'm going to have this conversation, but I'm going to multitask. So you guys are all watching him make the beer. Well, actually, what are you? Actually, I'm not going to assume make the beer. Marcus, what are you doing?
Today we are actually bottling member stout. So we have a membership program that we allow from September to October. September the previous year to October the next year. And pretty much a membership program where these individuals get specialty beers and items throughout the course of the year. So we have a selective membership with about 160 members, and then we have a membership that's called the Top 50 that obviously has 50 people. And so this is the Top 50's first release, which is a double barrel stout. So meaning that it was aged in a Willet bourbon barrel for about 12 months, and then it was transferred to a Woodford Reserve Master 15s barrel for about 6 months. Then we used a few hundred pounds of coconut, a lot of vanilla beans, and a lot of chocolate to go ahead and add some additional flavor notes to this particular beer.
All right, so so as a Caribbean kid, so I'm first generation I'm first generation from Haiti. Mom was conceived in Haiti. I was born in America. My mom came here when she was 8.5 months pregnant with me. And you said coconuts, and you said the chocolate, and like the cocoa. It's like all the things that we would get in the Caribbean, and I would just enjoy. But I'm not a beer person, so This is a conversation. Is usually there's an order to this, but I'm like, we're gonna go out of order. So I'm not a beer person. Grew up in a Haitian household where the only beer you saw was Heineken. But bourbon, the whiskeys, the rums, obviously, those are things that we grew up with. And so when I first heard about how these stouts were in the bourbon barrels, I thought, okay, this is great. This will be fun to drink. And I never found a love for it. How does one find an acquired taste for beer? Especially because there used to be the traditional, boring Millers, the Heineken, the things that we grew up with, the Coors. And now there's so much diversity in beers. There's so much flavor in beers. How does someone go from, I'm not a beer person, to trying something and finding something that they like?
So I always tell people that say they're not beer fans, that's not true. You just haven't found something that you like yet. Dealing with the particular beers, there's so many different style perimeters now, and so many different flavors that you can get within different beers and styles and different things like that. So say, for instance, the stout we're brewing today, or we put yesterday on a sour that had hundreds of pounds of strawberries in it, actually, and then lactose and vanilla. So you get kind of like that strawberry milkshake vibe.
Yep.
So there's always different flavors and styles for beers. So really, it's just finding something within your like palate that you enjoy, and then trying to try something within that frame. So typically, we have customers that come in that aren't fans of beers, or come in with significant others that aren't fans of beers. I normally ask them what flavors they do like, and then try to pair them something along that line.
I'm going to stop the clock here for a little bit, and we're going to rewind on who you are. One of the biggest things about small businesses are people focus on the company. They walk out their doors, they know their neighbors that run the stores, but they don't know the person. So let's talk about who little Marcus is. Marcus, who are you? Where did you come from? Hi, Marcus's friend.
I have headphones in, so he can't hear you.
So
he said hello.
Hi. Where did you come from? I mean, tell us from the time that you were younger to the time that you got into high school. Who are you?
Yeah. So I grew up in Rancho Cordova, California, which is a small subsidiary of Sacramento, Northern California. So grew up there, went to high school there, all that good stuff. Then I actually didn't move to Texas until about 8 years ago. And what brought me to Texas was I used to be a fraud manager for Citibank. They had moved their corporate office to San Antonio and offered to let me come out here and do some training. So went ahead, did that, and then was offered a position to go ahead and stay. Had never been out of California, never been away from family or anything like that. So, took the opportunity, said, why not? Took the opportunity and went ahead and moved here. Within the process of that, a few years before that, me and my brother had started home brewing. Me and my brother have a very competitive nature as far as how we treat each other and different things like that. And so it was one of those situations like my brother brewed a beer and it came out poor. And it was like, well, I can brew a better beer than you. So we went ahead and actually did our first couple of beers together. And from there, I ended up moving here. Got in a car accident my first week here.
Marcus, your mic, either your mic's not going well, but I can hear. I'm losing like where you were. I heard you clearly, but I'm like not hearing you clearly.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so from there, actually moved to San Antonio. Got in a car accident the first week I moved to San Antonio, and went ahead and took the money from my additional money that I got from the car and upgraded my homebrew equipment. Brewed a couple of beers. They really didn't turn out the way that I wanted them to. But from there, I actually almost quit. Girlfriend at the time, now my wife, had told me one of those things like, you spent all this money on this equipment, your ass better keep brewing. So I said, okay, we'll go ahead and give it a couple more shots before I go ahead and call it 100% quits.
Okay, wait a second. I'm gonna pause you. I'm gonna pause you for a little bit. So I'm gonna rewind. So California kid ends up in Houston. Were your family? I mean, was there some family members that were entrepreneurs, business owners, brewers? Because you and your brother started doing it. Where did you guys find out about this? Because it's not like someone's going out of their way to learn how to make beer.
No. So being in California, especially Northern California, it's very heavily craft beer influenced. So being said that, my brother was introduced to it from a couple of his friends from Southern California. From there, he introduced me to actual craft beer as far as the whole drinking thing. We started hanging out, going out to drink and that type of stuff. So from there, my sister actually had bought my brother a Mr. Beer kit for Christmas.
Did you say a Mr. Beer kit?
Yeah, so
That's
Mr. Beer kit, it's like a pre-made beer kit that you can get. And basically from there, beer came out terrible. So I kind of challenged them, like, oh, I can make a better beer than you type of thing. So yeah.
Is this brother older or younger?
No, this is my older brother. So my brother is 7 years older than I am.
And are there just the two of you?
No, we actually have a younger sister, and my younger sister is the one that brought my brother the beer kit.
Okay. What did your parents think when you guys were obviously you have this competitive nature, but what did your parents think about this competitive nature? But then when the beer started getting a little bit more intense, were they pro, con, their thoughts?
My parents were very con the whole beer thing at first. It was like one of those things like, oh, you're just brewing beer to get drunk. You don't need to be wasting your money over here brewing alcohol, that type of thing. But I kept telling them, like once I got comfortable within the craft, that I had a plan. Like this is all for a reason. I have a plan as far as what I wanted to continue to do, and we're gonna get somewhere with this. So my parents actually weren't very much supportive of the whole craft beer thing at first, and so from there, actually, just kept building and building the home brewing stuff. So from home brewing, I actually started bringing my beer once I got comfortable to other breweries, other bars and restaurants, different things like that, to go ahead and let people try the product, let people try the beer. So after a while, it ended up getting somewhat of a following into regards of the beers that I was producing. People were asking to try the home brews and different things like that because they were excited about the stuff that I was producing compared to actually what was available within San Antonio at the time. So from there, I was offered to have a tap takeover. Tap takeover is where you have a few different taps available at a particular place. So this brewery actually let me have a tap takeover in the brewery where I had 4 different beers on tap, and all 4 of those beers ended up tapping out the same night.
So quick question. So when I'm going to a restaurant or bar, it's like when you're saying the tap, it's like basically they have the someone's handle, and that's your particular beer until XYZ, right? So I'm breaking it down as in the
Correct.
Total layman term of it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Again, I told you I'm not a beer person. That's why I'm asking questions.
Nope. So ended up having this takeover, and the beer did very well. So from there, they actually went ahead and offered me a position as an assistant brewer at this brewery. So I took said position, still working full time, 100% at Citibank.
Yep.
And from there, kind of learned the do's and don'ts over the course of the next year. Being that it was a new brewery, a new establishment, it was a learning experience for sure. But over the course of that year, I kind of
wait. What was the worst thing? What was the worst thing that happened to you while you were learning?
The worst thing that happened to me, nothing physically per se. It was more so of a situation to where I grew unhappy because I knew that I wanted to produce my own beer. I knew that I wanted to experiment, that I wanted to have fun and do different things that other people weren't doing. And I didn't have the ability to do that at the place that I was at. Okay. So I actually ended up quitting after a year. And in that course of the year, I had met my business partner. At the time, my business partner was actually an investor for the previous brewery that I was working for. So we were out drinking one day, and I had looked at him and I go, when are we going to open a brewery? And he goes, I've been waiting for you to ask me that. And literally we started working on the business plan probably 3-4 days later.
Okay, wait, quick question, because you're multitasking. So are you sterilizing bottles?
So yeah, that's on the other side. Okay. When I go off screen, yes, I'm sanitizing bottles, and right now we're actually filling them with the stout. Okay. So if you look here, this is the bottling line. Okay. And then it's coming from this tank right here.
Gotcha. Okay. We're doing a lot here. I love this.
Yeah.
All right. So you start working on the business plan. You're already in business, so I'm thinking that you have a leg up on that part of the business part, and you're still learning how to make the beer. When did it start getting to a place where you started feeling comfortable about what you're doing?
I think the first time I felt comfortable with what I was doing was when people started asking to try the beers that I was creating. So contacting me, hey, I heard, that you're doing this and that, and is there any way that I can try the said particular?
Mhm.
To try the particular product. So from there, that's kind of when I got in that comfortable phase of knowing that the products that I was doing had the potential to be something good. So from there, me and Mike started working on our business plan. And then we opened up Weathered Souls about 8 months later. In the process of that 8 months, spent a lot of time trying to dial in recipes, working on new recipes, still home brewing. We were holding sensory programs for individuals to come try the beers and products, just so we can go ahead and get feedback and different things like that. So within the course of that now, are approaching our 5-year anniversary this year in November.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So things have gone very well. In the sense of the last few years, we've been San Antonio's best brewery multiple years. We've been San Antonio's best brewery for multiple years. We actually were Hop Culture's 2020 best brewery of the year last year. I've had multiple accolades myself, including Craft Beer and Brewing 2020 Breakout Brewer of the Year. I was Wine Enthusiast 40 under 40 list for top tastemakers in the world last year. Embiid 75 and different things like that. So, over the course of the last few years, things have definitely been picking up for us and going well in that sense.
Oh my, that is, it's so fantastic. All right, so what was your degree in college?
I was actually in marketing in college.
So obviously, okay, so marketing is good because, all right. So I tell people all the time, everyone needs to have certain jobs throughout their lives. I feel you need to work in government. I feel that you need to be a wait staff person. And I feel that you need to know marketing. Those are jobs that I feel that you need to have. Actually, no, let's add finance, because there's no university of like knowing my own finances. And so those are the 4 things. But what was that marketing? What in marketing that you studied and you were like, literally, this is your degree in? How did that help you in your business? Because again, you were at Citibank. Were you doing marketing in Citibank?
No, actually, I was in fraud management in Citibank, actually dealing with check fraud investigation. And I used to work on a lot of their policies and procedures for creating ways of detecting fraud within the organization.
Nice. So how did you switch from marketing to that, though?
So my actual marketing degree has not translated over very well into any of the careers that I've been in. Actually, how I got into Citibank was actually by chance. I used to work for Verizon before that, dealing with sales and marketing, and ended up being laid off when they had closed one of their business centers. And so a friend had contacted me that Citibank was hiring at the time. And so I went ahead and took the position. So over the course,
they took you knowing that you had but they took you with no experience whatsoever.
Yeah, so I actually started off as a temp, and then within a year, I got a promotion to a brand new department within fraud that was just opening up.
Okay.
Pretty much had to work that particular department from the ground floor up. But within the course of the next 2 years, because I ended up working for Citibank for 7 years, over the course of the next 2 years, I'm sorry, just 1 second. You didn't have to do that. All you had to do is take that one off and put that one on. But now you're fine. So I've had my friend has came and helped multiple times, but it's been a while. So we got to get him reacclimated on the brew floor. So went ahead and took that position and developed it. From there, I actually had the opportunity to start writing procedures for the particular department that I was in, and ended up becoming the supervisor for it.
Okay.
So did that for close to 6-7 years before I ended up quitting after the brewery opened.
When obviously during the pandemic, a lot of people have decided that they wanted to do their own thing. They want to try their new task at something. You and your brother started in a competition, then you partnered with a friend, you started this brewery. What would you say to someone that is looking and they're dying to start something on their own, but they're afraid to leave that cushy job that pays, where you have your benefits, you have your paycheck every single week or biweekly, you have your health care? What would you say to that person, because you did it?
At this particular moment, don't do it. But outside of that, if that is something that you do choose to do, definitely have your heart within it and have that passion. You know, a lot of people tend to get discouraged when things don't go the way that they perceive them to want to go, or go directly the way that they want to go from the jump. But when you're in that small business field, when you're a small business owner, you know, it's a marathon, not a race. So, you know, take your time, develop those skills, and keep moving. Don't get discouraged in the things that have going on. You know, there's that whole aspect of perseverance that you need to be able to have within the small business field. So that would definitely be the key thing, is to have a lot of perseverance. But in all honesty, in my profession, especially if it's in the restaurant business or brewing itself, I would not do it at this current time.
With saying that you wouldn't do it at this current time, March 2020, February 2020, January 2020, you had a plan. January 2020, you're winning all these awards and accolades. I'm sure that you had a vision or thought of what you're gonna do for the new decade, and then the buzz started happening, and then everything started closing down. What was it like for you then? And what, now that we've like surpassed 15 plus months with the pandemic, open, closed, PPPs, people like getting sick, people dying, all like with everything that's happening, your family in California, what was it like when you started hearing the buzz to the point to where you are right now, and how did you survive the year?
Yes, it was very difficult to do so at first. I mean, especially with the uncertainties of COVID, we didn't really know what was going on with it or anything like that. So my main concern was always my family. You know, my parents are in their 70s, live by themselves. My brother lives in Sacramento as well, and so he's close. But it's always that concern that you always have for your family members. And then also I have two small young children, so 2-year-old, 4-year-old. For me, work didn't change. I still had to come to work every day, so I had to operate the brewery, especially being, you know, within small business, can't take days off. Otherwise, you know, your staff suffers, employees suffer, and different things like that. So I'm still in here grinding every day, but then still having to go home, take off my clothes in the garage type of thing, just to make sure you're not immediately take a shower before you even kiss your kids and that type of thing. So it was definitely a scary and just frustrating situation on a personal level. On the business level, it was definitely interesting for breweries within the state of Texas. Because of some of the laws that went on within Texas, it made it very difficult once the insides of restaurants and stuff closed down for breweries to operate. For us, you know, even though we serve food, the Texas government doesn't perceive us as being a restaurant. So you still have restaurants that are open for to go and different things like that, but breweries aren't available to do it at that time. So what we actually ended up having to do was switch our license to a restaurant license just to be able to operate within our fields. So from there, went ahead and had to switch our license, operate that way, but then also go ahead and only have beer available to go. So people aren't allowed inside. We had to have curbside for people to come up, be available, you know, order their stuff online. And so it was a complete different differentiation of operation that we had to focus on, you know, moving to a whole entire online platform, you know, having employees go out to vehicles to bring in their product, and then only having to go product. For our business in particular, dealing with breweries, a lot of the financial opportunities come from the tap room. So being able to serve those beers within the tap room, being able to, you know, have your guests within the side, that's where the majority of revenue comes from. So
also just the whole entire concept of a multiple beers. I mean, so you have an individual that's in your establishment, and if you're getting drafted, I can finish this one. Oh, I like this one, or I didn't like this one, but I can try another one. Versus if I just take the takeaway, I go home and then I'm kind of done.
Correct. So being said that, it made it definitely a tough situation for us. But what actually ended up benefiting us, which inadvertently benefited us, was the initiative that we started in June of last year called Black is Beautiful. And dealing with Black is Beautiful, what that was a call to all of the breweries within the United States to participate in a collaborative effort brewing a stout, and then donating 100% of those proceeds from the stout to local organizations, charities, foundations that support equality, inclusion, and social justice reform. So we had a ton of breweries involve themselves, about 1,230 different breweries. It was all 50 states. Multiple countries involved themselves. I think we were close to 30 countries with different breweries that involved themselves within this initiative. So that definitely brought us within a international light for the social justice aspect that we were doing and stuff like that. So, I mean, definitely dealing with Black is Beautiful and the popularity that the brewery got from that definitely helped us survive throughout COVID. It wasn't something that was intentional, obviously, but it was definitely something that benefited us in the long run. Although we financially did not actually make anything from Black is Beautiful. I mean, for us ourselves, we've donated 100% of proceeds from all the beers that we've created from it. So just our beneficiary of the 100 Black Men of San Antonio have gotten over $40,000 just from our brewery. And that's not including money from our partners and different things like that.
Marcus, I just have to ask a couple of questions here because you just offloaded a lot in that one paragraph. You just like offloaded a lot. So one, where did the idea come from? I mean, was it because of what was happening? So number one, where did the idea come from? But also, what is the task that you have these different breweries doing? I mean, so is it your beer or is it their beer? How is it working exactly?
So the catalyst of where Black is Beautiful came from was a couple of different things. We're at the height of such a prolific point in social justice reform. We're at such a prolific point at dealing with civil unrest within the United States, dealing with the murders that we experienced last year, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and et cetera. So I was actually on my way to Dallas and was listening to The Breakfast Club. Angela Yee was giving an interview with Breonna Taylor's mom. She was going through the course of actions of her finding out how her daughter was murdered. That conversation literally brought me to tears just listening to how what that woman experienced and went through just to find out that her daughter was killed by the police. On the way home, was listening to a lot of the protests and different things that were going on the radio station, and actually drove through one of the protests in Austin. From there, went ahead and kind of felt bad. Was kind of disappointed in myself because we're at the peak of COVID. So I'm not going to participate in, the protests. I'm not going out. I'm not going to put myself out there in that sense. And then really felt bad. So over the course of that week, I was actually having a conversation with a good friend in Austin, and we were talking about race, relations, Trump, different things like that. And so it made me think, and I was like, man, I got to do something. So originally I was going to go ahead, do like a standalone beer release within the brewery, release it out, and donate some of the money to charity. But I had sent that mock-up of the label to my friend that I was talking to, and he was like, I know you wouldn't want to do this, but you should turn this into a collaboration. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, that's a fantastic idea. So over the course of the next 24 hours, kind of worked on how to formulate this, how to figure out how I was going to present it. I mean, we look at the brewing industry in general, and the brewing industry is 99% Caucasian. Customer base is 99% Caucasian. Yep. So you have to look at this as a way to be able to properly navigate it without infuriating your customer base, without infuriating your peers, and different things like that. So that's how Black is Beautiful was created. Okay. Within that, breweries are actually creating their own stouts, creating their own stout recipe off of their own stout beer off of a recipe that we created here at San Antonio. Okay. So it was a recipe that I created, and then all of these breweries brew this recipe. They obviously have the right to put their own spins and different things on it like that if they want to, and then release this beer and donate 100% of those proceeds from the beer to charities in their local communities that support equality and inclusion.
Now, you created this like a recipe. You put it out there. You shared it with you shared it with the world. This industry isn't known for sharing. You even started this conversation where when you were creating beers with your brother, about how that competition was what fueled you to where you are right now. How did you convince all these different places? And yes, we are in a historical time in our lives. But how did you convince them to jump on the bandwagon? Because some people they're hopping on bandwagons just because okay, I could do my own little personal check mark. But you convince not only in this country, all 50 states, right? But you convinced in 30 other countries to take on your recipe and to give 100% donation. What was the conversations like? Because again, this is a very competitive field, and this industry, which we're going to talk about what's happening with the industry overall, but you're coming in as a newbie and saying, by the way, I want you to do this.
Actually, there wasn't too much pushback from getting breweries to involve themselves. Now, we look on the aspect that only 1,230 something breweries involve themselves within it, and there's over 8,500 breweries within the United States. So obviously 1,200 is a very large amount of breweries, but then we look at it statistically and we haven't even cracked 20%. So, let's not get it twisted in that sense that, we had everybody participate, but we did have a large number in the sense of this 1,200 plus participate. And, it took very little conversation to get people to want to help. I think a lot of people do realize the lack of diversity within the brewing industry and the lack of diversity within the tap rooms themselves, and recognize this. And a lot of people do want to make the changes or adjustments to have the overall change within their businesses. So as far as that goes, it actually didn't take too much effort in the sense of trying to convince anybody to do anything. And if you did need convincing to do it, then I didn't want you to be a part of it. Good
point there. Good point. Going into the industry, we started this conversation where in my house, being from Haiti, Heineken, that's the only beer that you ever saw in our house whatsoever. Maybe my dad would buy a couple of Budweiser cans because if we had American friends coming over, but Heineken was the only beer because we were all about the liquor. So that's what we focus on a lot. The industry from the time that I was younger, I'm 52 years old, from the time that I was younger to now, I feel has changed dramatically, where, growing up with the wine coolers, the Zimas, to the canned wines or things like that are happening right now, going from the traditional beers, and it's definitely evolved to the point where everyone is creating their own at home, or you're going out of your way to find those amazing beers that really, really speak to you, and they're seasonal, and the subscription bases are really blowing up as well. Because of all the creativity in the business, in the industry, where do you think that traditional will go? All those big traditional businesses that are happening, what happens to them in the next couple of years?
I think the big brands aren't going to be going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately. Yes, a lot of people are getting into the whole support local and different things like that. But you figure, again, there's 8,500 plus breweries within the United States, and we still only have about a 20% market share of said beer within, the United States itself. And then you look at the large brands. There's considerably 3 or 4 large brands that go ahead and take up 80% of the actual marketplace within the beer. So with that said, I don't honestly think it'll be going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately. And what's crazy is a lot of these brands have started to purchase other breweries and small local breweries to give that facade that they're local and that they're supporting craft, but really dealing with the legislation side of it, because I am in the board of directors for the Brewers Association, which oversees, all of the craft breweries within the United States. And even on the legislation side of it, they're always voting against things that benefit us smaller brands, smaller breweries. So I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately. hopefully, consumers recognize the differences between actually supporting local and supporting these large brands, and realizing the benefits in supporting local and those small businesses. But that's more so up to the consumer to start recognizing these things, to be able to make those adjustments and changes.
You just tapped into saying that in regards of their acquiring small beers, Coca-Cola, the Pepsi started buying more and more juice companies, more water companies, because they saw that people were moving away from carbonated sodas, sweet sodas, because of course the pandemic of diabetes, the pandemic of overweight, etc. And so is this happening right now in the beer industry, where just like Amazon is acquiring everything, Pepsi and Coca-Cola acquiring everything? Do you see these big organizations acquiring you guys so that way, again, they can stay ahead of the game, or just to annihilate you to annihilate the competition?
It does happen a lot, especially, a few years before COVID. That was a very common practice. Since COVID, it's definitely slowed down. But for myself and my business partner, we're very much about supporting local and supporting the craft beer industry within itself. So we're not in any point looking to get bought out by any of the larger brands.
During the pandemic, now you're taking care of your family, you're taking care of the customers. How did you take care of your team, and how did you take care of yourself? Because you have, as a small business owner, the burden is high on you, and you went to work every single day. So how were you able to balance making sure that they were okay as well as you?
It was definitely something that was interesting. I don't think there was actually a complete balance per se. We're very much for trying to take care of our employees. So we never really talked about it. But during COVID time, I did take a pay cut, just to be able to make sure that, because the tap room wasn't open, that we were able to still pay our employees a livable wage and things like that. So I definitely took a large pay cut, some management, also took some smaller pay cuts to kind of compensate to help out the tap room and stuff like that. So I won't say there was really much a balance per se, but we did try to go ahead and do things for the tap room to help them out and help out some of the additional staff that we had that wasn't doing too well with the tap room being closed.
How big is your team?
So I have, 4 production employees, 2 sales staff, and 7 bar staff.
And how many of them throughout this entire time stayed with you? Because I think that's one of the things that a lot of restaurants, as you know, a lot of restaurants are having that difficulty. Restaurants that just weren't taking care of their staff, so the staff members aren't coming back. And these are the restaurants that actually had to end up closing, because in Massachusetts we closed. We were closed, and things were just closed. And so, how many of the individuals got to stay? Because obviously we are hearing how different states are providing different things to their employees. There are unemployment that's there, unemployment not there. So how was it for you in regards of the staff?
For us, we didn't lose any staff from COVID or after COVID. Our staff has been with at least everybody that's been here, was hired before COVID and has been here since then. So yeah, I mean, our staff has been pretty good in that sense, to where we didn't have to lay anybody off, and we'd actually, nobody has chosen to leave at any point.
What did you add to the company that you would have never done? Because like you're in year 5. What did you add to the company that now that you had that addition? It was a slow down time. So you didn't stop working, but you had a slow down time to think about things. Something that you would have probably added eventually, or maybe not at all, but now it's here and it's part of the business, and it's helping the business.
I would probably say the amount of different styles that we produce now. During COVID, because things had kind of slowed down, we had a lot of those opportunities to go ahead and experiment and do things that we've never done before. So we got heavily into things like lagers and working more on our barrel aged projects. So definitely the expansion of our barrel aged beers and going into some of the lagers that we've been producing since then, which take a lot of time. Those beers can take anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. So Those are the things that we've kind of developed since then, in the business since COVID. And then obviously keeping the large to go format of allowing people to order online and pick up beer has been something that we've gone ahead and kept.
Can you ship your beers, or is it just pickup?
So state of Texas does not allow you to ship beer.
Okay.
But what we have done is partner with other distributors and different things like that out of state who do have the ability. So they picked up beer and then are able to send it to other individuals.
Fantastic. So we were talking about how I don't have a taste for beer. I do have a taste for Guinness. Where I lived in Ireland, I fell in love with Guinness. But also when we were younger, my mother used to make this, most Haitian kids have had it, where half Guinness, half Guinness, vanilla, and Goya. Goodness gracious, it's Malta. So Malta, Guinness, and a little vanilla, and we would have that before we went to sleep. That was our drink that we had before we went to sleep. So I have always had the love for Guinness. So for the individuals that are just learning, so we have the IPAs, you were saying the lagers. What is the difference? Because you see the light beer, the dark beer, the stouts. Can you give us a little lesson in regards of the beers that you should be, when you're looking at a beer, what are you looking at? And what does it mean when someone says something is hoppy? What's an IPA? What are the basics that we should know?
Yeah, dealing with hoppy beers generally translate in two different ways. Obviously, hops are going to be used as an abundance with those beers, but there's two ways to perceive hoppy. You have the actual bitterness level, and then you actually have the characteristics that you get from the terpenes. Terpenes are enzymes that are extracted, oils that are extracted from the hop plant itself that create different flavor profiles, different aromas, and stuff like that. Kind of similar to cannabis. They're actually from the same family. So generally with hoppy beers, you want to look at those two different aspects. When you say lagers, you're referring to beers that have a particular style of yeast where this beer is fermented cold. Most beers are fermented at a room temperature. These are typically fermented on a cold level. And then these beers also take longer. So take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to produce. They're usually light, super clean, easy drinking. You obviously do have some higher ABV lagers, but those are too far in between. Yep. Generally with stouts, there's a lot of different stouts stylistically that you can look at. For us, we produce a lot of what you call imperial stouts and pastry stouts. Imperial stouts are huge mouthfeel, body, a huge abundance of aroma within them, a lot of dark chocolate, roasted character, higher ABV, and then pastry stouts is kind of like what we're bottling today, where you have those different flavor profiles that you mimic from some of your favorite desserts, food items, and stuff like that.
I didn't know if that was it.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we go from here? So where do you want your company to go from here, and where do you want Black and Beautiful to go from here?
So company-wide, obviously, dealing with the brewery to make money is all about expansion. So for us, generally looking, obviously, is to continue to grow, get our brand out there, have more people in different states purchase our brand's products and stuff. And as far as Black is Beautiful started year 2 on June 1st. So this year, in extension, we asked for breweries to go ahead and this year, besides donating 100%, is to collaborate with another local Black-owned business on the actual beer to give visibility to these brands. But the long-term goal is to hopefully turn it into a nonprofit organization where it can function on its own accord and work with different programs and partnerships within its own degree. But that's probably a year or two away from that type of situation, as running Black is Beautiful is kind of a full-time job on top of running a brewery, which is a full-time job. So it's had to have kind of a balance between both. So I'm actually probably a year or two from getting to that idea.
Are you going to have someone taking over the Black is Beautiful, and then you'll just be on the board, and then you'll stay with the brewery, or will you
I hope so.
switch?
Yeah, I hope that.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that will probably be the plan, is have somebody else take over and it run on its entirety.
And when you're saying that, it's like, I mean, so someone else runs it, will, so you basically got people in different states working on this. There's obviously, as you know, there's like, I mean, minority owned businesses everywhere around the world, around the country. Are you going to have a database? I mean, will that be part of it too? Or is it just, I'm just guessing or wondering, will there be a database where, yes, the brewery is the beer is the hook, we'll call it the catalyst to this, but then would it be a restaurant owned or dessert owned or something like that you partner?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the partnerships, it could be with anybody, but yes, restaurant owned, industry, service industry owned. Obviously, something dealing with ingredients or something like that would be the plus. But it's more so about trying to create that partnership within your community and trying to get visibility to companies, especially Black-owned companies that might not typically get the visibility that they would have that some of these breweries and popular breweries tend to have.
Yep. One of the last questions before I have two more questions for you. So we've seen you're working. I mean, you're creating the beer, not creating the beer, but you're bottling today. What are the things behind you? So whenever I'm looking at these things, so like I look going to Mexico, seeing tequila being made, you see the tanks. I see the small one behind you. I see the tall one that's like right like behind your head. What are they called? What are they? How long does the beer have to stay inside? What's the length of time? What's the oldest beer that you have there?
Yeah, so the tank directly behind me is our mash tun. What a mash tun is part of the brewing process. This is where your grain and hot water get added, your salts if you're adjusting your water. And what you're doing is the process of what you call satrification. And you're extracting all of the sugars out of your grain mash into this liquid to use to produce your beer. The taller tank behind me is what you call a hot liquor tank. So to make things easier for cleaning, for getting to the process of brewing faster, we keep our hot water at 196 degrees in this 80-barrel tank. So we always have a little over 1,200 gallons available for us at a time to be able to use as far as hot water goes. The oldest beer that we currently have in the brewery is about 18 months old, which is in a barrel aging. The beer that we're bottling right now is actually about 18 months old too.
And you can only get that beer if you're part of the elite group that you discussed?
Yes. So this beer is only available to those 50 members. And those members have been members for all 3 years. Spend a considerable amount in the brewery, have been advocates for the brand for multiple years and different things like that.
So how does a newbie ever get to that list?
And now a message from our sponsor. Since 2017, the Foundation for Business Equity has existed to support Black and Latinx-led companies in reaching their full potential by providing access to critical growth tools that include expanded networks, capital, and markets. To learn more about the Foundation for Business Equity, FBE, visit fbequity.org. And now, back to our guest.
I hope that there's an opening.
All right, good to know. Good to know. I have to say this. I mean, so for me, I walk into every single conversation not knowing much about you because I want to hear the story from you. The learning. I mean, you are, for a person that came from marketing to financial world to this. You're very savvy in your words. You're very savvy in the knowledge of this, which I'm always so impressed by, because there's too many times that people say they're like, oh, this is what I do. I'm like, I go, but they can't articulate it. And I'm like, but you do it every single day. You are smooth in your words. Again, I don't know what the beer is like. I'm just not there. But I love that you're so smooth in your words, where the storytelling, the education come together very, very well. So thank you very much for that, because that's one of those moments where there's so many people that are talking about what they're doing. And I'm like, well, you're talking over my head. You're not talking with me. You're talking at me. And the entire time I'm like, I understand this. This is good. I go and I'm learning and retaining, which is a great thing. So thank you. I'm assuming that for your kids, you're a great teacher as well, because if you could do this learn something new. Your kids are probably like absorbing as much as they possibly can from you as well.
Trying anyway. Trying. My oldest, she's actually been in the brewery since she's been about 1. So she's done stuff like add the yeast to tanks, dealing with some of the funner stuff, putting marshmallows in the tanks, getting ready for different beers. And we do a girls pint out beer every year. So we every year we're huge supporters of women in craft beer and women in the service industry in general. And so one thing that we do every year is a collaboration with the local women's group with craft beer. And so my daughter has participated that in every year since she's been born. So, hopefully eventually it'll be a family thing. If not, she wants to be a doctor.
Well, you know what? That's not bad. I mean, either dad's business, the family business, or a doctor. It's not that bad. But
nope, I'll take either one.
Exactly. I have to say that I'm hearing so much more of the altruistic things that you want to do. And the beer is just like, it seems like the beer is there, but you're an advocate for women. You're an advocate for minorities. You're an advocate. And the beer is just like, yeah, it's the hook of what I do. So do you ever think that you're just going to leave the beer behind and just like be a full on advocate for fill in the blank?
Probably not. Never in my life did I ever think that I would be in the social justice front. This is literally something that came, just out of passion, basically. And never would have ever thought in my life that it would be something that I would get into. So being said that, I think that I will always be more so kind of into the general craft beer, but I have implemented other things within my life to support these different things that I'm into. So being a part of the Brewers Association, that's overseeing the entire craft beer industry within the United States. Yep. This has always been a predominantly Caucasian industry, and I'm the only Black person that's on the board. And
how long have you been on the board?
That has been less than a year now. So that was this year that I was
less
elected
than a year.
To the board.
Less than a year. How many people are on the board?
There is 20 of us.
Less than a year, 20, and it still hasn't changed. Even by one other person. Exactly.
Started a diversity committee within the Texas Craft Brewers Guild. I'm on the board of directors for the Texas Craft Brewers Guild. So started a diversity committee within there. And that's one of the first states to have a DEI program for their actual state guild. So, there's other ways that I can go ahead and still participate and give back without having to give up, my actual passion of brewing.
Marcus, you are a star. I mean, look, you're very, very chill, but you are an absolute star. So, I love the fact that you just even took the time and just, again, you're multitasking, but I appreciate that you just took the time to talk to me. You are doing, honestly, I don't even know how you're doing all this stuff. You're doing a lot. You are doing a lot, and you have little ones, and little ones, they take up all your time.
Oh, definitely. Especially during the summers, a lot of festivals and conferences. So just like a couple weeks ago, I'm going to Colorado for a board of directors meeting. And then last weekend, I'm going to Denton outside of Dallas to give a keynote speech. And so my daughter's over here, sees me with my duffel bag. Daddy, where are you going? Daddy has to go to a conference to talk. Again? Yes, again, Niara. It's going to be quite a bit. So... they're fully aware.
Okay, good. With all these variants that are going on right now, how are you preparing for the unknown? So again, there's all these variants. There are a couple of places that are there are people that are choosing not to get vaccinated, but they're the ones that are at the highest point of getting sick. There's a lot of locations that are closing down again. A mandate that just came where in a lot of different states, colleges are choosing, and colleges are definitely by far, I'm assuming, one of your best components of customers. But a lot of colleges are saying that they're opening schools, but it's going to be required with the mask, and it's going to be most likely a hybrid. So how are you preparing for that unknown, but knowing that the buzz is happening, but with what we know of it? So it's the unknown of the thing that we're aware of versus in March of 2020, where we had no idea.
Yeah, I'm pretty much hoping for the best right now. that we don't get in the situation to where we have to get shut down. My staff is fully vaccinated. So everybody has been through the vaccination process, including myself. But, you know, if worse comes to worse, then I think based off of the things that we learned last year with dealing with the curbside to go, the beers that we need to produce to still bring people in, and some of the things that kind of excite fans to at least want to drive their cars out and come to the brewery and to sit in the parking lot. I think that's stuff that we could still implement. So, I mean, being said that, it's when we go back to the whole marketing thing, being able to market to your customers and let them know that their safety is our highest priority at all times, and that we're going to do whatever is necessary to make sure that they stay safe.
How close are you guys to Houston? I mean,
we are about 2.5 hours from Houston.
Oh, okay, because I have friends that are from Vancouver and they love beer, and they just got relocated to Houston.
Oh, okay. We'll tell
and
them
they're
to come
always
down.
they're always looking for something new and fun to do. And so I'm literally, once I post this, I'm sending it right to them so that way they can go on a field trip. So this brings me to the last question that I asked. I asked this question of everyone that I speak to, no matter how many times I speak to you. And I will find ways to bring you together, because bring you out to talk again, but also bring other groups together, because we need to hear your voices. People don't understand the intelligence and the knowledge and the data that you guys are creating every single day. And I need the world to understand this by having you guys not just do what you do, but also talk about what's happening in the world. So the last question I will have for you is, if you had a personal ask and a professional ask of anyone that's listening to you right now, what would be your personal ask and what would be your professional ask?
Personal ask.
You have to put your head in your head in the camera a little bit so we can see.
Personal ask, I would say, for everybody to have an open ear and show respect for one another. I think that's where a large gap in the discrepancies of where a lot of people lie, is the fact that everybody thinks they know everything and don't want to listen. And if you just had a common ear to listen to people's strifes, issues, concerns, problems, then you would probably find that you do have some commonality somewhere in the long run. Professional ask would be obviously to support Weathered Souls. Anytime you see the beer anywhere, online, wherever, make sure you support, purchase, and hope you actually enjoy the product that we're producing here.
Marcus, you are awesome. You're awesome. Thank you. I mean, and you know what I mean? All right, so in Massachusetts, where do I find it? Where do I go? I mean,
Massachusetts, I have not been in Massachusetts yet, but I'll actually be collaborating with Trillium later this year. And so you'll be able to go by Trillium Brewing and pick up our collaboration.
Okay, so when will this happen? So that way I know, because Trillium, I know exactly where it is.
That's going to be next month. So I think you're going to be able to find the beer sometime in September. Okay,
perfect, because September was obviously October is a big beer time. And I did fib a little bit because I just forgot. I went to, so I run marathons, and I ran the Berlin Marathon. And I took my mother and one of our close friends, and I'm telling you, we drank the beer the entire time, and I've never had beer so good in my entire life. And I think I just forgot that because I'm just so used to the typical, not great tasting beer. But in Berlin, I mean, I don't know how you get, I mean, are they selling it in Berlin, or is someone making it there? Because it is legitimately amazing beer.
Yes, overseas, especially in some of those European countries, they make great beer over there. I mean, outside of dealing with, some of the older countries like Belgium and some of the African countries that have been brewing beers for thousands of years, Germany has been doing it, and Europe has been doing it for a very long time. And so they make some great stuff out there.
Yeah, I want to see your beer there. I definitely want you to see a collaboration with you in Europe, but without a doubt, next month you're going to get it there. Wait, next month or September?
Next month. Yeah.
Well, next month is August.
Yeah, and I can shoot you an email and let you know specifically when they'll be available, so you can go check it out.
I need to know in advance, because Trillium. One of the things that happens with Trillium, the line goes long, and once they're sold out, I mean, in Massachusetts, I have to say it is one of the better places. It's in a great location by the water, but they have a following, and this following, once they get in line, it's gone. I mean, there's nothing, you have to wait.
Yep.
So I have to know so I can go, because I'm not a beer drinker, and I'm not a person that's going to wait in line.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, beautiful. Marcus, thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me. It's much
Stick your
appreciated.
head in the camera just one more time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bye.
Let's turn it a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
see, there you go.
There we go.
And your buddy's up there waving too. He's like, yes, get off. Thank you so very much.
No, thank you for having me. It's much appreciated.